There are few things I despise more in the games industry than seeing game companies trademark or patent game mechanics. To me, that's like the equivalent of somebody saying that certain types of brushstrokes belong to me and no other painter can use that now. Or in music, saying that certain types of musical techniques are now patented and therefore other musicians can't express themselves with that. Or with books, saying that certain techniques like rhymes are now patented and only I can do rhymes and everyone else has to adhere to other techniques. It just limits creativity because ultimately it's not mechanics and techniques that define art. It's how they're used to express. It's the expression of those techniques. And patenting game mechanics or trademarking game mechanics, it feels like you're limiting expression through just essentially trying to monopolize certain aspects of how you make games. We have plenty of examples of such occurrences, like how Warner Brothers patented the Nemesis system from the Middle-earth series, and they recently killed off this game that was in development, the new Wonder Woman game that was going to utilize that system, but that's been shut down. So that patented game system is just no longer going to be utilized until Warner Brothers decides to, and nobody's allowed to take inspiration from that, because if they do, they might be up for a lawsuit. Another company that is well known for patenting game mechanics is Nintendo. And recently, we discovered yet another patent that might potentially impact how game creators are able to express themselves. Right here, we have an article from news outlet GameSpray published on September 9th, 2025. It reads right here, last week, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company received a U.S. patent on summoning a character and letting it fight another. It is right here in this bullet point. The more exact detail reads as follows. Exactly 1 week ago on September 2nd, 2025, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office granted Nintendo another patent, U.S. patent number 12,403,397, which covers the fundamental gameplay mechanic of summoning a character and letting it fight another. The related patent application was filed in March of 2023 and has now been granted by the USPTO without any objection. And this kind of ties into the way Nintendo has been suing Pocket Pair, the developers of Palworld, despite the fact that Palworld plays nothing like Pokemon, while there are aspects of its gameplay that are reminiscent, like the ability to collect monsters and creatures via a throwable device. The fact of the matter is that the game, when you kind of actually get your hands on it, it's nothing like Pokemon. You could claim that some of the pals in Palworld do look like some of the Pokemon in Pokemon, and that's an area that Nintendo can pursue, but because that's a more difficult case, Nintendo is trying to take the angle of we patented and trademarked certain gameplay mechanics that Palworld is utilizing, and that angle is just completely messed up. A, the fact that you can trademark and patent game mechanics at all, and B, Palworld, again, just ultimately doesn't really play anything like Pokemon. Nintendo taking the approach of we own these game mechanics for a game that ultimately doesn't resemble what Pokemon does, it's pretty egregious, and this patent will give Nintendo basically more ammunition to pull off something like that, where they can go after game developers for using mechanics that Nintendo can say, we own that, and they can stifle competition that way if they feel like another project that is somewhat reminiscent in the way it resembles Pokemon because of aspects of, monster collecting or catching, they can just kind of decide to threaten those kinds of developers or intimidate them into not making Pokemon-style games, when that genre of game should be something that other developers should have creativity with, the creative freedom to kind of take their own spin on it without fearing Nintendo's wrath, because Nintendo shouldn't have full ownership over that genre of games. Now, it's worth noting that more details have come to light about the patent, and Kaylee Plagg, who's been an editor for outlets like GameSpot, Polygon, and The Verge, came out and said this after reading the specific language of that patent, saying, quote, genuinely not to pick on this particular headline because there are a few out there, but having read the patent, it's very clearly describing auto battle as it appears in Scarlet and Violet, not like all monster summoning, LOL. In a follow-up, she continues by saying that I haven't formed a solid opinion on the patent effort in general, but I just think being precise with language is important, which I do agree with. Like one article called out Persona being affected by this, but Persona has no mechanic at all resembling what's described in this patent. So that is worth bringing up, the exact language of that particular patent, but also Nintendo just has a bunch of other patents that do cover just basic mechanics of like throwing balls to collect monsters and whatnot, to summon them and to collect them. Now, what exactly is auto battle, the exact mechanic that this specific patent seems to be tackling? Well, right here we have an article from Game Rant that kind of describes it. Basically, auto battle allows you to summon your Pokemon and have it go out and battle other Pokemon without entering the battle screen and you're having to like grind by engaging in a manual battle every single time. Players can auto battle almost straight away by pressing the R button. The top Pokemon in the party will be sent out to battle any wild Pokemon lingering nearby. Who wins in the battle is decided by a number of factors: the type of each Pokemon, their level, and so on. Basically, you have the Pokemon do the battle for you without commands from you, and that way just accelerates the process of battling wild Pokemon and grinding and leveling up. But even if that patent specifically covers auto battle, it doesn't change the fact that it is still a game mechanic that Nintendo is patenting. It doesn't change the fact that Nintendo is giving themselves legal power to ensure that if they don't like how another game utilizes that mechanic, or if Nintendo deems a game that uses a similar mechanic to be too much of a competition or too much of a threat, Nintendo can go after them. And it doesn't change the fact that it is going to limit other developers' ability to be able to utilize that mechanic in their own creative way through their own expression, because of fear that a company like Nintendo might come after them. Here we have another outlet that describes this patent more specifically. There's an article from Video Games Chronicle that says that the patent describes a situation where a console or other system is being used to run a video game from storage. The player controls a character in a virtual space. The player can perform an input command to make a sub-character appear. Example, summon another character or another creature, you name it. If there is an enemy where the sub-character appears, the player can control a battle between the sub-character and the enemy. So the player itself doesn't directly control that battle, but have the character engage in battle with that enemy. If there's no enemy where the sub-character appears, the sub-character will automatically move around. The player can move the sub-character to a different location on the battlefield, and if an enemy is there, they can control a battle between the sub-character and the enemy. Basically, the ability to control a character or entity you've summoned to battle another enemy without the player getting directly involved. Their direct involvement lies in commanding a character to go battle. Video Games Chronicle aptly highlights that this is a mechanic that could also apply to something like the Pikmin series, where you can summon Pikmin and you can command them to do battle, but you yourself don't issue input commands because the Pikmin automatically do battle as long as you tell them to go battle. And sure, this specific patent and mechanic may not specifically affect something like Persona because all of those battles are manual. You don't summon a character or an entity or a creature that you can command to do an automatic battle for you. You still have to do the, turn-based manual inputs. But there are plenty of games where you can summon creatures that do automatic battle for you. Any fantasy game that has like necromancy, for example, you can raise the dead or summon entities from beyond, and then they serve as companion characters who automatically do battle for you when there is a hostile entity approaching you. That basically describes this mechanic that Nintendo's patenting. In Elder Scrolls, you can summon an entity from beyond and have it do battle for you. In Diablo, you can play as a necromancer that can summon undead entities and have them do battle for you. So are those now under risk of being sued by Nintendo because this patent was approved? That's ridiculous. What Nintendo is patenting here is basically summonable companions who will come to your aid. That's in so many freaking games, and that will be in so many freaking games. It is a central mechanic to a lot of games where you can summon entities and have them do battle for you. That's not a new concept that Nintendo came up with. And then on top of this, keep in mind that this isn't the only patent related to Pokemon-esque mechanics or mechanics related to, summoning creatures or characters who you can control or have them do battle for you. Nintendo has a bunch of patents that they've used against Palworld to try to essentially diminish that competition. So, for example, with the lawsuit against Palworld, Nintendo essentially alleged that Palworld infringes on 3 existing patents that are related to monster catching gameplay, including summoning pals by throwing pal spheres and using pals as vehicles like gliders. The fact that Nintendo can just have ownership over that and they get to decide who gets to utilize those mechanics and who doesn't based on who they deem to be dangerous competition or not. Mechanics that are so broad that a lot of games could utilize them in all kinds of creative ways. It's just like the idea of Nintendo having all that control is just gross to me. The idea of any company, period, having any semblance of full-fledged control over a specific kind of mechanic, over a specific genre of games, is just gross to me, because it is just so limiting in the art form that is game making, and how all developers, including Nintendo, the way they've evolved themselves is by taking inspiration from each other and one-upping each other and just kind of evolving together as they exchange ideas while still ensuring that the games that they ship remain unique enough. Now, it's worth knowing the distinction between trademarks and patents, as Video Games Chronicle describes here. Basically, trademark law says that a company could lose its trademark if it doesn't challenge any infringements, whereas with patents, the entity who owns the patent to something can choose not to pursue any other company that decides to use it, and only do so when it feels its own IP is being threatened. So with a trademark, Nintendo would have an obligation to pursue anything that encroaches that trademark, whereas with a patent, Nintendo won't lose the patent if somebody else uses a mechanic that is similar to the patented mechanic, but it does give Nintendo legal leeway to pursue and go after anything that does encroach on that patent if Nintendo feels like their IP is being threatened. So Nintendo can pick and choose who they allow the use of things that they've patented and who they don't allow. The outcry, the outrage against this situation has already grown to pretty substantial size. Nintendo Everything reported on this, and you can see right here, there are more tweets than likes on this article, and plenty of people basically advocating for the abolishment of anything that involves patenting game mechanics. Hell, the top post here reads, "Abolish gameplay patents," or just the very concept of being able to do so. You've got a bunch of quote tweets saying similar things like patents for gameplay mechanics just shouldn't exist, period. It's like trying to patent a chord progression. That's what I mean. Musical techniques, paintbrush techniques, or writing techniques. It's all like things that help you create something, but it's not the creation itself. The unique creation itself is, again, the expression, the unique expression of how you utilize all of these mechanics to create something that is just uniquely yours. On Reddit, you already have plenty of folks talking about this. Top posts saying things like, there's a line between we need copyright patent law in principle and the current implementation of copyright patent law is kind of broken, and we need to find this line stat. I do agree that with patent laws, especially where video games are concerned and where game mechanics can be patented, it is broken as hell that this is allowed to happen at all. The ability to patent such game mechanics means that entire genres can be owned by specific companies, and that is just something that should not be allowed in what is ultimately a creative medium, what is an artistic form. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Nintendo's latest patent that has been approved as far as game mechanics are concerned, and what you think about the idea of companies patenting game mechanics as a whole. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.